Welcome to Broadcasting Buffalo. I'm your host, Elizabeth Carey, and tonight we're looking at the public art scene across Western New York. From murals to sculptures and even graffiti, art is everywhere in our area. Murals can be found all over the city of Buffalo, especially in areas like Hertel Avenue. Richard Miller has more.
Perhaps the most public form of creativity and artistic expression. Here on Hertel Alley, several local artists get to showcase their work just steps away from one of Buffalo's busiest commercial streets. Since 2017, Hertel Alley has become a destination in Buffalo's public art scene. As you walk around, you'll find dozens of murals, all created by different artists.
I did my first mural, my earliest mural was at School 74 in Hamlin Park, actually. It was indoor. It was like in the preschool wing. I have pictures of it, but it no longer exists.
One mural that you'll find on Hertel Alley is a collaborative effort between a father-son duo honoring a hip-hop legend.
The image of the portrait is of Rakim, golden era MC and hip-hop artist from the 80s. And the song that inspired it was Follow the Leader.
The inspiration itself was kind of just playing on each other's sort of ideas.
Altogether, Buffalo has over 60 murals and pieces of public art. Idris and Emeka talked about how special it was to work on their artwork together.
Being so like-minded, we had some contradicting ideas, and with that, we just had to do a lot of talking and discussing. In the end, I think it turned out to be very great.
The Albright Knox Art Gallery launched a public art initiative in 2013 with the city of Buffalo. The goal is to make Western New York a hub for public art. For more information about the murals, whether it be the meaning behind the artwork or creating a mural for yourself, make sure to visit hertelwalls.com. From Broadcasting Buffalo, I'm Richard Miller.
Thank you, Richard. When we come back, we'll be joined by Aaron Ott, curator of the Buffalo AKG Art Museum's Public Art Initiative, and Brian Hayden, senior director of marketing for Visit Buffalo Niagara. We'll be right back with more Broadcasting Buffalo.
Hello, Buffalo. I'm Ed Asner. You may remember me as television's no-nonsense news director Lou Grant. And if you think about it, journalists provide us with our first draft of history. Right here in Buffalo, more than 50 years of TV news coverage is being brought back to life. Local stations are working with the Buffalo Broadcasters Association to bring back the stories that help define the Niagara frontier.
The Pheasant Lane neighborhood, where drifts reach to the rooftops.
It's called the Archive Project, and I support it with all my heart. So should you.
Experience Buffalo and Erie County's unique stories with the new Buffalo History Museum podcast. Connect with Western New York's history as you listen to detailed narratives about heritage, architecture, business, innovation, and significant events and people throughout time. The podcast takes inspiration from the museum's collection and beyond, from experts on staff and featured guests. From the 1918 influenza to F. Scott Fitzgerald, experience the stories that make up our region. The Buffalo History Museum podcast. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Broadcasting Buffalo. I'm Elizabeth Carey, and with me today is Aaron Ott from Buffalo AKG Art Museum and Brian Hayden from Visit Buffalo Niagara. And we're going to talk about how Buffalo is becoming such a colorful city with so much public artwork. To get things started, Aaron, let's talk about this public arts initiative that began more than a decade ago.
Yeah, it began in 2013, actually, with conversations that started with our current director, Janne Serin. Janne was formerly the director at the Helsinki Museum of Art, and at that location, he was actually required to provide public art to the city of Helsinki. So when he came to our region in 2013, he began what was for him a very natural conversation with county leadership, in particular Mark Poloncarz. And Mark and the county legislature saw the value in bringing public art to the region. However, we are a really unique public art initiative in that we are, because County Executive Mark Poloncarz and the legislature were our foundational sponsors, shortly followed by the city, we really think of Erie County as our sort of curatorial geographic landscape. And that is a landscape that is over 1,000 square miles. It has dozens of municipalities. It has over 1 million people. So it is a diverse kind of landscape where we have the opportunity to place works in the shared landscape. So I began as the inaugural curator of public art in 2014 and started placing our first works of public art in September of 2014.
What are some of the examples of the public art that you've put in different places across the area? I know there are many, but if people would know.
Absolutely, there are many. I think, one of the most iconic is Shark Girl down at Canal Side. That was also one of the very first in 2014 that we placed at that location. We started the initiative in 2014 very consciously with a handful of works that were meant to set the tone. So Shark Girl, a kind of whimsical, non-threatening work of art that you can actually interact with, that you can take pictures with. We started with You Are Beautiful by a Chicago-based artist, Matthew Hoffman. It's a dialogic work of art that is what it says, You Are Beautiful, on 44 billboards. Our museum has actually given away 160,000 stickers that say You Are Beautiful as part of that program. And then we did a mural that was by a group out of Providence, Rhode Island called Tape Art that was made out of tape on the downtown Buffalo Public Library. And the impermanence of that mural was meant to, again, start a dialogue about what we could do more permanently in our shared landscape.
Wow, so a lot has gone. It's hard to believe Shark Girl's that old. And that's something that, of course, people love to take selfies with. So, Brian, how has this public art really affected both tourists and local residents alike?
Absolutely, Elizabeth. I think the Public Art Initiative was so impeccably timed for Buffalo's emergence as a visitor destination. We're so lucky to have, Aaron at the helm of this incredibly ambitious initiative that splashed murals throughout our neighborhoods and our county. It coincided at a time where our architectural landmarks, the Richardson complex, the Martin House, Graycliff, all came online after decades of restoration work. It coincided with the emergence of Canal Side and Riverworks and Silo City on our waterfront, becoming a destination, in a previously industrial area. It coincided with an explosion in craft breweries and new restaurants and all these amenities for visitors to check out. And all through it, as visitors discovered this re-energized Buffalo, now there are murals at every turn, in every neighborhood, around every corner, where it becomes this backdrop to the story of our transformed city.
And I know there's no hard numbers like to say, oh, this many people, you don't know if it's public art who visited, but that social media effect is evident with the pictures alone and people sharing that. And do you think it affects visitors when they come to Buffalo, that they say, oh, this is the spot we want to go to and this is where we want to get our picture taken?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can think of a trip I had taken to Minneapolis and being just so impressed with the murals there at a time before public art had really taken hold in Buffalo. So it's something that destinations across our country have really embraced, and we're so proud that Buffalo is on that short list of great public art cities now, because of the work of Aaron and his team. There are so many Instagram moments, and no question that, the fact that public art coincided with the rise of social media and smartphones, every single picture taken and shared on someone's Instagram in front of, say, the Greetings from Buffalo mural or anywhere else in our city, it's a point of marketing that, we market our city at Visit Buffalo Niagara, but there's this multiplying effect every time someone shares an image to their social media feeds, and it's in large part due to these sort of Instagram-worthy moments that public art creates.
And this initiative has really evolved over the years. Do you constantly think whoa, how do we get creative and how do we think of the next best thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the AKG, we're a global arts institution, and so we know that we're a catalyst and thought leader in the space of public art. And, as you were mentioning, some of these organizations, whether it's Graycliff or Darwin Martin, these are also collaborators of ours that we've worked with in the past. So really trying to point to the broader creative cultural ecosystem in the region is something that we want to bring to attention to people that live here, certainly visitors. And as we're thinking about, what might gain attention and how we can interact with our public, we're always thinking about what the next opportunity is.
Yeah, I'm sure not just being creative with the art itself, but being creative of what gets placed where and how you stay on top of the latest trends.
Yeah, well, it's the latest trends and also being appropriate with the public that you're engaging with, right? So there's an artist, Felipe Pantone from Valencia, Spain, who's a street artist who has these wild, inventive works that deal with computer graphics and optical illusions. It's great work, but you can't put it everywhere, right? So that particular work found its way to the back of Town Ballroom, a rock and roll venue. Right there, it's really an appropriate location, and it's a great indicator of the kind of cultural value that the city offers. When touring acts come to a musical venue like that, they step off their bus. They may not have the opportunity to engage with the city as broadly as they like, but the second they're off that bus, they're engaging with creative culture.
And it's so natural, the way you find the right placement for everything, where people probably don't think about, oh, why was this here? They're just like, oh, yeah, and you just embrace it depending on what location you're visiting.
I'm glad it feels natural. Everything that we've done is a collaboration, right? We don't work on AKG's property, we work on shared property, whether that's city, county, private individuals that are offering their land or their buildings for the public benefit. So everything that we do is collaborative, cooperative, and it requires dialogue before we get to the final product. So our hope is that through those conversations, we've been able to, dial in the right work for the right space.
Sure, and I'm sure there's a lot more coming with the program that we'll hear about a little bit later on the show here tonight. So we're joined here with Brian and Aaron. I want to mention that graffiti is another popular form of public art, though it's not without controversies. So when we return, we'll look into graffiti in this area as well. Stay tuned.
Hello, Buffalo. I'm Ed Asner. You may remember me as television's no-nonsense news director Lou Grant. And if you think about it, journalists provide us with our first draft of history. Right here in Buffalo, more than 50 years of TV news coverage is being brought back to life. Local stations are working with the Buffalo Broadcasters Association to bring back the stories that helped define the Niagara frontier.
The Pheasant Lane neighborhood, where drifts reach to the rooftops.
It's called the Archive Project, and I support it with all my heart. So should you.
Imagine a place where others believe in you, a place built to build the next generation of diverse trailblazers, a place where individuals put action behind their words. Whether this is the place where it begins or the place where it continues, let this be the place where you win.
At Buffalo State University, you can earn your master's degree in as little as 18 months. Advance your career with more than 60 affordable graduate programs at Buffalo State University. Fall classes start soon. Apply today.
Welcome back to Broadcasting Buffalo. I'm your host, Elizabeth Carey, and tonight, Emmanuel Rogers takes a closer look at graffiti and a well-known symbol you might have seen around Buffalo.
Graffiti art, one of the most well-known forms of expression here in Buffalo, New York. You may see right here Guy Figurestick's work. Let's see what people have to say about his message. He goes by the name of Guy Figurestick, a local graffiti artist who expresses his work through the art piece called The Backpack Kid. This piece can be found hiding anywhere within Buffalo, New York, from buildings to bridges and even highways. Local street artist Jesse Zufel, aka Banksy Hates Me, talks about his views of Guy Figurestick.
Stuff is everywhere, with the backpack heart guy, with the speech bubble with a heart in it. Like it just gives most people a positive feeling. Obviously, not all building owners or government officials feel that way, but the average person who sees it kind of gets a warm feeling from it. He is trying to spread love. He is trying to put a positive message out there. He's painted all across the country. He has a child that's out there that he hopes sees his pieces and says, my dad put this out there for me to show me that he loves me. And so there's definitely some of that. But I think the big message that he's putting out there again is it's intended to be interpreted by the observer.
Local owner of Buffalo Shopcraft, Krista Penner, had this to say about Guy Figure Stick's work.
I enjoy seeing it. It's always nice to see little messages of love around. So I'm not a person who gets particularly angry about graffiti. But I do understand, if it's on private property or something like that, if someone doesn't want it on their own building and things like that, I do see where that could be problematic for folks.
Not everyone has a positive view on graffiti. City officials don't view any graffiti as art and are taking action to remove it.
From our standpoint, we look at it as someone is a painting or damaging someone else's property.
And what we do, we'll go out and remove the graffiti. If we can paint over it, we'll paint over it with the same color, try to make the building back to normal, and what it was like before. Or we'll power wash it to remove the graffiti off the building, sidewalk, or anything of that nature.
With this artist's image being located all over the city, it is definitely certain that his message is different depending on the observer. From Broadcasting Buffalo, Emmanuel Rogers.
Thanks, Emmanuel. I'm joined tonight by Aaron Ott from Buffalo AKG Art Museum Public Arts Initiative and also Brian Hayden from Visit Buffalo Niagara. And we're talking about the art scene in Western New York. How does graffiti tie into this public art that we talked about earlier on the program?
Well, graffiti art always kind of overlaps with creative culture. I mean, graffiti by its nature is part of the shared landscape, right? So you have to think about the ways in which artists who are operating in non-sanctioned ways and non-sanctioned spaces are in dialogue with the broader community. One of the artists that we saw in that previous segment is in some ways ubiquitous throughout Buffalo, and the question that we want to ask ourselves as a community is what value we place on that, right? I think when we're talking about any form of public art, truly the value is not merely the work itself, it's how we share and understand that work. I think one of the reasons why, the stick man with the heart figure has been popular is because the message is kind of uplifting, right? We live in some troubled times, and having a message of hope or love resonates with people whether or not it's sanctioned. We at the AKG, and I mean this is true of the history of art, right? You can find graffiti in ancient buildings in Rome. So this form of sanctioned, non-sanctioned work has been a part of creative culture since people have been making those marks. But there's always an overlap. That Venn diagram between sanctioned art and unsanctioned art pushes together. We've worked with many artists like that. I mentioned Felipe Pantone earlier, who is themselves a graffiti artist. We have featured the work of Futura 2000 here in the Elmwood Village as somebody who got their start illegally painting streetcars in New York City. And they've made their signature and their vision something that was born out of a desire to have a conversation in the public. It's tough because sometimes that can cause damage. It can be in places that were otherwise sensitive, protected by historical regulations. So, as a curator at a museum, I'm always careful to try and think about the ways that we are in conversation with our public. An individual who's doing graffiti art is taking that upon themselves. They're taking known risks, but ideally, if they're doing it right, they're also getting reward back from the community.
And the graffiti has really changed over the years as well. It looks a lot different than it did back in the day.
It does, and it can. I mean, you have the classic kind of letters where an individual has their signature. Sometimes it's a symbol. But, again, you're looking at a legacy of artists with Futura 2000. This is an artist that was painting alongside Basquiat and Kenny Scharf and Keith Haring, names that are legendary now. And a lot of those artists got their start on the streets. That's true of an artist like Cause. There's a number of artists that work in that kind of liminal space between sanctioned and street. And I think that, there's a vitality there that we, when we're working with those artists, want to retain, but try and ensure that the public has an understanding of what our goals are, what the outcomes are, so that the shared landscape is not one that feels as if it is aggressive or we are doing something to a community, but rather that we're doing something with a community.
Very good, especially when you talked about how calculated calculated and planned everything is to put things in the right places. And Brian, thinking about tourism for this year, you have a lot of events planned, so that means people will be coming into the region. They're going to be able to see public art as part of these activities that are taking place.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big summer ahead. I know in June, Buffalo is celebrating the 50th anniversary of its Juneteenth festival. And that comes in a year, which really I think amounts to like a year-long celebration, you know, of our African-American heritage in Buffalo. The Michigan Street Baptist Church just reopened after a multi-year restoration. And hopefully by the start of the summer, the Historic Colored Musicians Club will reopen, one of, you know, the most storied music venues of its kind in the United States. Music will be flowing from there once again. So we have new attractions coming online, the 50th anniversary of Juneteenth, and all the while, I mean, public art serves as a backdrop. I mean, you can explore the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor, then wander up to Michigan and East Ferry to see the Freedom Wall, which is this incredible, you know, public art display of profiles of local and national, you know, African American leaders from past and present. Really, you know, pick any subject matter in Buffalo, and there's a mural for that, basically, too. So I know the Garden Walk weekend, too, the free open tour of gardens across Buffalo. You know, that's garden art, essentially, and another great weekend to then explore public art as well. So, you know, it's going to be an exciting high season, and public art will be right front and center through it all.
Well, definitely a lot to look forward to in 2025. And like we said, a lot of colorful images for all the visitors and local residents alike to enjoy. Don't go away, though. We're going to wrap things up right here on Broadcasting Buffalo right after these messages.
Hello, Buffalo. I'm Ed Asner. You may remember me as television's no-nonsense news director Lou Grant. And if you think about it, journalists provide us with our first draft of history. Right here in Buffalo, more than 50 years of TV news coverage is being brought back to life. Local stations are working with the Buffalo Broadcasters Association to bring back the stories that help define the Niagara frontier.
The Pheasant Lane neighborhood, where drifts reach to the rooftops.
It's called the Archive Project, and I support it with all my heart. So should you.
Experience Buffalo and Erie County's unique stories with the new Buffalo History Museum podcast. Connect with Western New York's history as you listen to detailed narratives about heritage, architecture, business, innovation, and significant events and people throughout time. The podcast takes inspiration from the museum's collection and beyond, from experts on staff and featured guests. From the 1918 influenza to F. Scott Fitzgerald, experience the stories that make up our region. The Buffalo History Museum podcast. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Broadcasting Buffalo. We are talking about public art in the city of Buffalo and beyond across Erie County. So much to be seen. Our guests today are Aaron and Brian from, of course, AKG, Buffalo Art Museum, and also Visit Buffalo Niagara. And Aaron, we were talking about big events taking place this year. You have one that's coming up.
Well, we have one that's open right now. So the exhibition High Vis is an actual celebration of the 10 years of the Public Art Initiative. We are a unique initiative within the North American landscape. There is no other museum that has a dedicated public art staff doing public art on behalf of a county-wide space. And so over the last 10 years, we've had the privilege of working with over 90 artists on more than 65 projects. And we have a survey exhibition that features a select group of those artists, about 38 artists that we've worked with and commissioned over the last 10 years, that is on view right now through June 9th. And it's a great overview of those kinds of artists that we have worked with. In the spirit of the work that we commissioned in public, many of those artists produced brand new work for us for this exhibition, never before seen. We also have a complimentary book that features the entirety of all of the works and all of the projects that we produced between 2014 and 2023. It's a great opportunity for people to understand the depth and breadth of the work that we've done.
Okay, I am sold. Definitely coming to visit before June 9th, and another long winter that we had, and just a few minutes left here, or a few seconds actually, but you have more information at your website with Visit Buffalo Niagara if people want to go for a tour of some of these public art spaces.
We do, yeah, certainly, the AKG, is the definitive source of all the murals that they've created over the years. On our site, we've curated a few different routes on Hurdle Avenue, Allentown, and in downtown that basically guide you block by block to see some of these murals and suggest, taking these different walks through our city. Very inspiring experience. We point people to visitbuffaloniagara.com to find out more.
Okay, great bucket list idea for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this segment of Broadcasting Buffalo. To learn more about public art across Western New York, visit our website, buffalobroadcasting.com. Have a great night.
I tried plumbing. That didn't really work for me. Then I tried electrical. That wasn't for me either. I'm like, what do I love to do? I love to cook. What's up, my guys? My name is Chef Darian Bryan, owner executive chef for the Playday Society. I'm also an alumni for Buffalo State College, man. You guys really set me straight so I can, move on with my career. I studied hospitality and tourism while I was there. Before Buffalo State. I'm going back to Jamaica, right? Some other hill called Brad's Hill. Food is always the one thing that brings us back together. My mom used to have a cook shop, and I used to help her in the cook shop each and every day. So that's where the love for cooking. I came here when I was 20 to Buffalo. My first job was at Denny's in Delaware. Denny's teach me all about American food. Never seen pancake a day in my life. Was practicing night and day, every day, practicing the menu. So after finishing up ECC, I'm like, I want to be a chef instructor. I want that knowledge. Because any food question they ask and they know. I'm like, I want to do that too. Because I know one day I want to open my own restaurant. I choose Buffalo State because I heard that it's the best in hospitality around town. So when I asked for that big check, you can't tell me no because I got a 4-year degree. But yeah, that's the reason why it pushed me because I want to be a chef instructor. I love to teach and I want to learn more because everything was just so new to me. What stand out most to me at Buff State? It's more like the love and support my instructors show me, like the professionalism that these folks, they know so much. And some of my favorite memories just working with those folks side by side. Campus also is fun too. Like the hands-on learning, dealing with real people, It's a fun experience. You gotta stay with it, man. Stay clean. Presentation is everything, the way you carry yourself. Practice, spend time on yourself. And you'll get there, believe me.